Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. I want to be a little closer to you guys right here. Let's just come up here. Is that gonna be okay? We all right? You can see my face, right? Nice smile and everything. Well, how's everybody doing? I really appreciate everyone coming out for our City on a Hill vision meeting. This is kind of a time for us to be able to talk about things and just hear what we're doing and how we are prayerfully proceeding to do it. City on the Hill is a 3-year campaign to raise $6.5 million for the next stage of development of what we have come to call the Real Life Center. All right, the Real Life Center is our campus. It's our home. It's home of River City Community Church, our 3 affiliated nonprofit ministries, River City Believers Academy, Real Life Community Outreach, and the Real Life Center for the Performing Arts. Each of these ministries, every week, some people who come to church on Sundays here, they don't really realize all that God is doing on this campus. Every week, we know about River City Community Church, right? We've got pictures. We're going to show you pictures. And you see all those things. You see our baptisms. You see the ministries. You see the kids' ministries, the fellowship that we enjoy together. We're all about discipleship. That's what River City exists for, right? We're about helping people become passionate followers of Jesus. That's what we do. But many people don't know that we have a school, River City Believers Academy. River City Believers Academy is a pre-K through 12th grade school. It supports the mission of River City Community Church. It's all about helping students become disciples, but we get to do it all week long. We get to do it through all the disciplines, the academics, not just math, language, arts, science, things like that, but their athletics, their arts. Everything we do is to help them look at the world through a biblical lens and equip them with the skills they need to go out in the world and be world changers for Christ. We have Real Life Community Outreach. You hear us talk about that. Many of you have probably served at our community outreach, where we have our Christian assistance ministry, feeding. Every month, thousands of people receive food support from River City Community Church. We're one of the largest partners with the San Antonio Food Bank because of the resources that God has blessed us with here. It's all done out of the other side of the campus, out of a small concession building, but it's a huge ministry that's happening through that work. And then our vocational training ministry, where we teach air conditioning, electrical, welding, all those happen over by our shop, which is near Gate C. And then, of course, maybe the most visible ministry of all to at least the community is the Real Life Amphitheater, right? This is the Real Life Center for Performing Arts. And when you see that thing, one of the coolest things for us after buying this, after waiting 7 years because of the deed restriction that you guys are aware of, just to see that thing operate and be used for, just the what it was intended for. And for us, we get to meet our community in a way that is meaningful to them. See, as wonderful as all these things are, and I just want everyone to be aware of all that's happening here, the Real Life Center, our campus, exists for one reason, and that is that people need Jesus. That's just the truth. People need Jesus. Our world is in trouble. Everybody knows it. All you do is watch the news. Right now, there's huge turmoil happening. Our world is in trouble, and to many, it seems to be falling apart. People are confused. Parents are scared about what's happening in their kids' schools. We are so broken and divided that people are constantly now, and it's a thing on social media, making references to the Roman Empire, the dissolution and the division and the fall of the Roman Empire, because of the way it just crumbled and the way it fell apart. And they're seeing that happen. And people are truly worried. And what we understand, there's political solutions, there's education, there's finance, there's all the other things. We understand the only real solution is the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's the gospel. The gospel changes people's hearts. It changes people's lives. It changes community. Everything we do here, all those things, don't ever lose sight. They're all about sharing the gospel with people by meeting them at their point of need and sharing the love of Jesus. See, that's what we have the opportunity to do with this campus. That's unique. People who come here, they come for all different kind of reasons. We get to meet them at their point of need through this amazing tool, this amazing gift that God gave us. And it's all about the gospel. Don't ever forget that, because for us, feeding people is really important. School is really important. Job training is really important. All the things we do for families, I think, really important. But it's all to help people find their relationship with Christ and be different because of their relationship with Christ. We've been doing it for 25 years. I want to show you the video. Some of you got to see it on our anniversary Sunday just a few weeks ago. Take a look at this video because it gives you a scope and kind of a picture of why we do what we do and the opportunity that God has given us. Take a look.
It was real.
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 Because it was real.
I love when the power of the gospel is being preached, because God said when his word is being preached, it's going to change. It's going to change won't change your circumstances, but it will change you. Things won't get better, but you know that there's an eternal future that you have.
As a family, we were lost. We had been invested and involved in a church prior to joining River City, but it became more of I was serving and he was staying home.
We began about as humbly as anything could begin. No buildings, equipment, no funding, just a word from the Lord with the mission of seeing more people living real life by passionately following Jesus. Now, the vision God gave us looked different than anything we'd experienced in church before, but we knew the journey could be pretty unconventional. We recognized that many people who desperately needed the life-giving power of the gospel were not really open to what they imagined the church to be, and we wanted to change that narrative.
So when we moved to San Antonio, we were coming from a community that we loved very much, and the move was difficult for all of us. We had 3 young kids, and the thought of finding a new church was just really daunting. But River City ended up being the second church that we visited, and when we visited it, we never went anywhere else.
Yeah, no, it was a tough road, but I just felt the Lord pulling me more and more, and just the love that people would give me. I think more it was the people that served a lot, and I wanted to be a part of that. And now I've been, in youth ministry. I've been at the Glen, been serving it a lot.
We envisioned a place where people from all backgrounds and all walks of life could experience the power of the gospel, a place where the heart of God would be on display through his people, the church, a place to serve as a greenhouse for genuine relationships committed to walking together on the journey to real life.
A friend of mine, she'd been friends since high school, and when my wife left, we first were separated. I was about as lost as a broken compass. Took her up on an offer to come here, and that's how God reached out to me. That's how he started saving me from myself.
I would say that my life is different because of my time here at River City, because I'm just more of a joyful person. I look for the good out of every circumstance, and I look for what the Lord is possibly doing in everything, rather than just being weighed down by the negative things.
When we started as a small group in our home 25 years ago, we couldn't have even imagined what God had in store. It's been a wild, miraculous ride, one faith step at a time. But we now have the privilege of celebrating 25 years of seeing God fulfill this vision that he gave. God's even allowed us to see that vision expand beyond this place. River City, New Braunfels, Landmark Church in San Marcos, and Compass Church in Helotes were all planted and born through God's work in and through the ministry of River City. We've been privileged to celebrate salvations, baptism, life change, and real life in all these churches alongside of ours. With great joy, we give thanks for 25 years of real life. In 2011, God did something that radically changed the trajectory of our ministry. He enabled us to purchase the 110-acre campus of the former Verizon Wireless Amphitheater. It was obviously far more than what we were looking for, but it came with a vision for a center of community ministry. This vision and opportunity were more than we had imagined, but God confirmed that this place was meant to be a gift of his heart to the broader community around us, a gift called the Real Life Center. In Matthew 5, Jesus said his people, his church, are to be a light, a city on a hill. Our prayer is that we and the Real Life Center would be a physical reflection of his light to our city and beyond. With that prayer, we are launching City on a Hill, a campaign to generously invest in what God started. Our campus is obviously not nearly finished. Our opportunities for ministry have outpaced our current facilities, and we feel called on this, our 25th anniversary, to launch the next 25 years. Our vision is to raise $6.5 million over 3 years to invest in the development of the Real Life Center. We're inviting every person who calls River City home to join us in praying, serving, and generously giving to the vision of more people living real life by passionately following Jesus, and to help us be the city on the hill that he desires. In 25 years of ministry, we've seen God take us beyond anything we could have asked or imagined. And the amazing part is, he's just getting started.
Through the messages and through hearing, I don't know. It wasn't very long because we started coming here in February, and in April, I was at home one day and I just literally heard the Lord saying, "It's time for you to give me you." And I was just, that was it.
I did. I came home one day and she was glowing and it's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" She's like, I found Jesus. And gave me goosebumps.
I did.
Gave me goosebumps right now.
Our story.
Our story.
Our story.
Our story.
Our kids' story.
My grandchildren's story.
Our kid's story will be different because of this place.
I can't help but wonder.
I can't help but wonder.
And I just can't help wonder who's next.
I want to be real clear. When we talk about this campaign, that's what we're investing in. That's what we're looking at. More people living real life by passionately following Jesus. That's a glimpse of what it looks like. And that's what this opportunity, this campus, this gift that God gave us, this responsibility that he gave us, that's what it affords us. You heard how we purchased the 110-acre Verizon Amphitheater property for $5 million. Between 2009 and 2011, we sold the property for $3 million that we were at our previous campus. We raised 2.2, then later on, $300,000 more. We borrowed $6.7 million to construct our current facility. This is, as you heard yesterday, this is the only facility that we've had to build here. Everything else we've remodeled, we've repurposed. We have really worked hard to make the most out of what God gave us. We have been good stewards with what God gave us here. So when we moved onto this campus, what we did is we rolled up our sleeves and we got to work. And we just started doing ministry. And everything that has happened, we've just paid for out of our budget. We've paid for as we've gone along. That's how we've operated. But as we understand, things that were already aging when we bought the property, they've gotten older. The parking lots. You've looked at those, right? Any of us who pay any attention at all have been very concerned about the parking lots. Okay, those are going to have to be resurfaced. Sprinkler system. This summer, this property had a sprinkler system, but much of it was broken. Some of it was working. A lot of it's not. We need to redo the sprinkler systems. And this summer was a great example of why, you know. The original buildings, all the original equipment, it's just needing updates. It's needing improvements. We have some amazing opportunities that require additional facilities. We're going to talk about those in just a moment. And I want to say City on a Hill is our step of faith to begin addressing these needs. Now, as we've gone through this process, I want to tell you 3 big goals that we've had for this process as a congregation. 3 things that we said we want these to happen through this campaign. All right? It's not just about the money we need to raise. We wanted this to be a campaign first of focused prayer. A campaign of focused prayer. What we recognize is God didn't bring us here because we were super smart and because we raised a bunch of money with slick promotions and consultants. That's not how it worked. God did amazing, miraculous things that we couldn't do on our own. And we understand for us to get to that next step, we're gonna show you some things, and you're gonna very quickly figure out, wait a minute, $6.5 million and all those things, that's not gonna cut it. but we'll tell you what God's put in our heart and what we believe is going to happen to see that realized. But we're going to need a move of God. Scripture says, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. So I want our congregation to pray. At the end of tonight's meeting, we're just going to spend some time together in prayer and seek the Lord. Because we don't ever want to forget, this is a work that he's doing. He's invited us to participate by stepping out in faith, but he's the one who's doing this. We want it to be a campaign of focused prayer. We want it to be a campaign of shared vision. Shared vision. What I mean by shared vision is at River City, we've all got our things that we do. We've got our community groups. We've got our ministries. We've got our stuff that we love. And we are basically a pretty happy-go-lucky, content people. And that's a beautiful thing. But one of the issues that can arise from that is we can forget what our mission is. We can forget that God called us to do something here, and he gave us the opportunity, and it's like, that means it's our responsibility. This is our responsibility. And focused vision together, all of us, shared vision, saying, yes, I love my group, I love my ministry, but I'm also a part of this church, and God called us to make this place. Remember, we've told you multiple times, when he gave us this property, it wasn't about us having the biggest campus in town. It wasn't about us being able to say, look at all the space we have. It was about us being used by God to give a gift to the community around us. That's the heart. That's the assignment. And so that's when we talk about shared vision, it's like, I want to be involved in my missions. I want to be involved in my ministries. I want to do all that with all my heart. But I also want to remember, God has an assignment for us as a family together. And so we want to have shared vision as well. And then, of course, the third thing we want to see is faith-building generosity. Faith-building generosity. And what I mean by that, faith-building generosity is when God calls you to do something. God calls you to support. God calls you to invest. He calls you to be generous at such a level that you're not sure how it's going to work out. But every time he does that, every time we obey him, our faith is built. And we see God provide. We see him provide for us as a family. And we're not exactly sure how it worked out, but we see God bless. We see him restore us. We see him bless us abundantly. We see him carry out the work that we were called to do. We see him multiply it. Like take what we offered and what we gave and it becomes loaves and fish. And just like those people, when Jesus fed the multitude with a kid's lunch, they were all amazed. Never has there been a prophet like this come into the world. Well, when we are generous and when we give what God puts in our heart to give, it changes us. And I'm telling you, there are some people in this fellowship who've never experienced that never been a part of something like that, where God stretched you and then met your needs and then multiplied your resources, and then you got to see something happen that was miraculous. And it's time for all of us to experience that. All of us. It's exciting. Our goal financially is $6.5 million for the development of the Real Life Center. $6.5 million. You can see that's broken up. See, look on the slide. You can see these three big categories. Financial health, that includes debt reduction, $2.493 million. Campus improvement, $1.932. And then Real Life Center development, $2.075 million. Let me break that down for you. Let's take a look at them. Okay, debt reduction and financial health. When we bought this property, just because of the way it was a very complex purchase, the way it was done, there were 3 loans that were all done throughout the process as the way the bank financed. We paid for, with the proceeds from our previous property and with the money we raised, we paid for a big part of it, but then there was the construction and all that had to be done. So there were 3 loans. The biggest loan is the first loan. And we've paid down on that now for the entire time that we've been here. The second loan is really almost paid for. $147,000 left. We want to pay that off out of this campaign. And loan 3, there's $1.5 million left. We want to pay for that ultimately out of this campaign. Okay? And obviously, that's as funds come in. This is over a 3-year campaign. That's the way that's going to work. But those are things we want to see done. Reserves. We have invested an unbelievable amount of money and resource in where we've come so far. And it has depleted our reserves. And so $800,000, that represents about 3 months reserves that we want to see brought back in, because that's really important just for financial health and stability. And we want to get that back to where it needs to be, okay? So that's an important piece, and those goals will put us in a really good place financially. We'll have 2 loans paid off that'll lower our payments because, as you know, interest rates are going up. Commercial loans always have a 5-year bump on their interest rates if rates are going up. And that's what we're experiencing. So this will that'll help us reduce expenses through that debt reduction, and it'll help us have the appropriate reserves to be able to operate well, okay? So that's the first one. Second, campus improvements and updates. Worship Center technology updates and improvements, $1 million for Worship Center updates, technology updates and improvements. Some of you go, oh my gosh, $1 million, what's wrong with what we have? You have to understand right now, the fact that these lights are working, it's because I'm sure the tech team had a Jericho march around the deal before we started. We had a light board. Our light board is such that we can't barely touch it. And again, these things are outrageously expensive. The sound system in the back of the room, that's the sound system from the Redland campus. Okay? In 2004 is when we built that building. And then we moved over here in 2012. So we were in that building 8 years. That was 8 years old when we moved here. And we knew we'd need 2 systems because of the way this room is configured. And so that's the system from Redland. Don't tell us we're not cheap. Okay? We're frugal, and we try to get $1 worth of ministry out every dime. And that's one of the ways, but that is old. This now has been in here over 10 years. Great point someone at one of the meetings last time brought up. He says, stop and think about the technology of our phones. That everybody has a phone, and you know how quickly technology is changing. You know what I really love? I just love how when someone's here Sunday morning watching worship, and they're worshiping, and the lyrics are up, and they're like this. And then they're holding their neck, and they can't raise their arms, right? Yeah. How comfortable is that when you're sitting on the front row? Okay? We really need a center screen, an LED screen, just some updated technology, and sound, video, all kinds of pieces. There's some things we want to do to this room that will help this room be a little better fit for what we're doing. Again, remember, we do everything. We do everything we can very frugally. I've told you before, we pretty much get $1 worth of ministry out of every dime that's donated to this campus. And we work very hard at that. And we intend to do the same thing here. But this technology piece, to do it well, to do what we do with worship and communication and video and all the things that we do, it is very expensive. So $1 million upgrade, and it's really, really needed, okay? Maintenance and repairs. This is where we're talking about parking lots, sprinkler systems, different things just around the campus that are just old and need to be repaired. Everything costs a lot of money. And it's just the way it is. And in a campus this size, it takes a whole lot. And so, and again, these numbers are based on rough estimates that we've gotten from different vendors, different contractors to say, this is what we're looking at to have this done. And we'll be able to do this as the funds come in. Because again, there is not a plan to borrow money against this campaign. The plan is to do these as we're able to afford them, okay? Campus security, we have a school, right? We're a very open campus. We have a school, we have children's ministry, we have all the events. So simple things like cameras, monitoring, fencing, it's about $150,000 of needed security just to be a big public venue and to do that well. Courtyard and patio improvements. We want to have a baptistry out in the courtyard, a nice place to do baptisms. I love the baptisms we've done. We've gone to using horse troughs because we were tired of watching, people have to climb up into the pool and over. And sometimes, you have some older lady, she's very sweet, and we have to help her up in through the pool. And it's like, okay, we want to do a little better. We'd like to be able to have a baptistry in our courtyard where we could all go out after service and have a baptism and people sit around, celebrate and worship together and do that. So courtyard patio improvements, we want to put some of those. That's our foyer, right? And it's a very, again, frugal foyer. But having some of those clouds, those covers, what do they call them? Kites, huh? Canopies, just to be able to give some shade out there. So because that's where our food trucks are, and we love that. We love the vibe. But to put some shade and some other things like that to make it a nice place for us to fellowship and continue to use that. And then, of course, the canteen is where our youth meets, and we want to put a sports court up there. They can play basketball, pickleball, other things like that with a sport court facility. Again, this is what we're talking about using the resources for. And then last thing, real life center development. Gym and sports fields, okay? $1.2 million for gym and sports fields. And you're like, okay, what kind of gym are you going to build with that and sports field? This is part of our plan for what we're looking at doing with the ministries. That's why we have different nonprofits. We believe there are foundations. There are people who believe, for example, in Christian education. We have a development person who works with our school who's working to raise money to help build the school's portion. This is going to be a partnership with the school where this is going to help build a gym for the school with some offices and some things up front by our gate A. We'll show you where in just a minute. But that we are going to seed that investment, and then there are others who will give to that when they see we've made a seed investment. There are foundations, there are groups who will do that, and we will raise funds for the rest of that gymnasium. And we actually see there being, this is just the first part of the first phase. We see there being ultimately 2 gymnasiums because the school is going to partner with us at first, but ultimately we want to have a whole gymnasium and sports complex to be able to do kids sports because it's huge in our area. And there's a great need for facilities. And stop and think about whenever you have kids sports, what do you have? Thousands of people, families, others who are here. And when we see that, it's an opportunity to serve our community. It's an opportunity to meet people. It's an opportunity for discipleship. And God gave us this facility. That those fields up front are just perfect for a sports complex. And so that's the vision. When we say gym and sports field, we're talking about the first investment, seed investment that we would make in a gymnasium facility for our school, that we would partner with them for sports outreach. And then ultimately we would raise funds for a second gymnasium as well, okay? Community outreach facility, exact same concept. We've already started on this, and I'll show you drawings in just a moment, but this is a building that will be up near gate C. And this part is just the beginning of a food warehouse because we're right now over in that concession building, and a food warehouse is an important piece. And it would have refrigeration, it would have a small office for them to work out of, and it would just make the whole process of delivering food and serving our community a lot easier. Again, what are you going to build with $500,000? That's the first investment. We've already had some folks begin to give. You know, we've looked at talked to HEB. We're talking to St. Luke's Foundation, Baptist Health, where Harvey Nasium has already given us a small gift to begin a relationship with us. And these are all players around town who support this kind of ministry, who, because we are doing it through real life community outreach and not through River City Community Church, they will come along and they'll invest. I mean, corporations like that won't invest with a church, and we understand that, all right? Our church is our responsibility. We get that. But that's why we started Real Life Community Outreach. They will invest in our feeding ministry, our vocational training, and things like that. That's the strategy. Same thing with our school. Those 2 entities have capacity to connect with donors who want to see that kind of ministry happen. So, okay, our Real Life Center branding, we need to redo our sign up front, LED, all of our signage around our property. Performing Arts Center program investment, there's lots of stuff in the amphitheater that needs to be done. There's people that we need to be able to help maximize that because we've got just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the performing arts, but there's a lot more that we can do. We want to make some investment in that. And then, of course, Real Life Sports program investment. This is we can start this right away with the fields we currently have. And so that's a first step to start having community outreach and sports ministry right now, okay? Those are all the things that we envision doing. Now let's take a look at some of these things, these images of the campus. What you're seeing right here, this is our architect's first look at a community outreach building, okay? There's 2 wings. What we're talking about in the phase 1 is the one on the left. This is the food warehouse building, okay? And again, the estimates $2-3 million to build that. So that's the rest of what we have to raise. But that's what that $500,000 is, the first investment in this building right here. Okay, and that's a food warehouse. The rest of this facility is down the road, and this is you can see the bays for our vocational training ministry. And then this is a meeting space, a nice meeting space to be used for all the ministries, and it's just a nice room to be connected to those, okay? So that's what we're talking about. Let's look at the next one. This is the ultimate, this is what the kind of long-term vision of the sports complex up there would be. This left side is for our school, River City Believers Academy, and it has some classroom space. It has gymnasiums for them to be able to use, and it's where we would start doing our community outreach out of, our kids' sports programs, things like that. And then later on down the road, this is a larger double gymnasium when you can really begin to do a full sports outreach program, okay? That's the vision. But the piece we're talking about on this campaign, at least the seed, that $1.2 million, is some investment in our fields and this facility right here. This is where they would be on the campus, okay? So you can see this is the community outreach building. This is gate C. That's Evans Road, okay? So that building would sit right there. Look at all this open space so people can come in. They can come through that entrance. They can, if we're doing drive-up food distribution, you can just drive through there, or people can park, and there can be counseling services. For people come in and we do clothes ministry where they come and they get to shop for clothes. And so all that can happen out of this building here, and it's really nice to be able to have it in its own space on the campus. This is where we envision the sports field, sports ministry. Obviously, the sports fields are there, but we felt like at least a part of our school campus would be great to have it up here. So this is that side of that building, okay? That's that first part. And that's where right on gate A. So have a nice entrance come in. We envision ultimately the church's main entrance moving to gate B. Our sign is in here. So kind of the church has used this as main entrance, but this is still an available entryway. But this is where we would see our school, our sports outreach. Again, plenty of parking for all the events that we would have there. This is a design for the Real Life Center signage. Okay, that's our existing sign. We're not going to replace the whole sign. That's the LED screen that's already there. But we would redo the branding, and it would be home of, and here you have River City Community Church, you have River City Believers Academy, Real Life Community Outreach, and the Real Life Amphitheater. And they're all housed at the Real Life Center. And see, what that does, honestly, envision this center that the community looks at and says, wow, that's that great nonprofit that's doing all this ministry for the community, for the poor, kids' sports, and behind it all is this church that makes disciples and that is responsible for all of it. And it's just a very cool piece. The church is kind of the overarching ministry that's behind it and overseeing, but all these things are happening at the Real Life Center. That's the vision to make this part of what we're doing. They delivered to us today. Architects are still working on things. This might be kind of neat to look at. These are some animations of those buildings. So that's what the curb appeal, that's what it will look like when you drive up to that athletic facility when it's ultimately built. And again, there's a lot of stuff to go. This is clearly not a $1.2 million building. You know, we're talking about $20 million. So this is going to take some time. The first building, is it 10, 12? I don't know. Again, that's where this process goes, and we are starting the process with our investment. But what we recognize is this whole process, it's too big for just the church to do alone, and these nonprofits allow us to bring other partners in the community who share our values and believe in our kind of ministry to help support and invest in the Real Life Center. And then, of course, here is the community outreach building. There's the food warehouse. There's that nice couple that always hangs out up front. Wonderful people. I love them. And here's the notice for inclement weather, a drive-through, some very simple stuff that is based on our experience. And so that's what the project looks like. That's what the project is going to go for. And what we want to see, and this is a key idea, and I want all of us to understand as we do a project like this, we want every person involved. That would be the first goal. Every person who calls River City Community Church to say, yeah, this is our church. You call River City home. This is our church. We want to be a part of this. 100% participation is our first goal. And we want 100% involved in sacrificial giving. Sacrificial giving. Understand, this is on top of our tithes. Because tithes and offerings is what pays for everything we do. And all the staff and all the facilities and all the utilities and all the supplies and all the stuff that we do. And I know some people might say, well, I'm giving tithes, so I'll just give it over to this. See, it works out. Well, it doesn't help if you give to build something and then you crush the ministry that's running it, okay? So the idea is offerings are on top of the tithes. So that's something we want to understand. And we are talking about sacrificial giving. And it's important for us to recognize as we do a project like this as a congregation, we're not talking about equal gifts. We're talking about equal sacrifice. Equal sacrifice. Not equal gifts, equal sacrifice, because everybody's in a different place. Everybody's in a different place. You know, when Jesus told the story of the widow's mite, he in just kind of almost in awe, called his disciples and said, look at her. She's given more than all the others, and she had just given 2 small coins, but she gave everything she had. And so, you know, as we pray and as we ask the proper question, what is God asking us to do? Right? If that's a number that you go, boy, that's a stretch for me, but it doesn't seem like much compared to other people. Yeah, forget the compared to other people, right? The idea is that we give sacrificially to what God's called us to do, and we give according to how he's called us and how he's prospered us. I'm praying uniquely, and I'll just share this with you, and I would ask you to pray. Maybe some of you might be in a position to be one of these. I'm praying for what we call lead givers. Lead givers. It's funny because in every area of ministry, we see people who are talented or gifted, and we encourage them to lead out and to lead, whether that's worship leadership, teaching, group leadership, whatever. And we're very comfortable saying, you have a gift, you need to use that. We're kind of squeamish about saying that about people with resources. And I don't think we should be. I think everything we have, time, talent, treasure, it's all a gift of the Lord. And so I think we should say to people who have higher net worth, higher income, we should say, what's God asking you to do with that? And I'm praying for some lead givers. I'm praying that the Lord would give someone the faith and the courage to give 10% of this project. I've got one of our elders and one of our elders' wives who came to me and said, the Lord has put on our hearts to pray for someone who would give $1 million. And I'm like, Lord, let it be so. Let it be so. I'm praying for that the Lord would give us a lead giver. I'm praying that the Lord would give us several others who would give $150,000, $200,000. And it's like, man, but that's a lot of money. I understand that. God's put on Lori's and my heart to give more than we've ever given to any campaign like this for us. And it really is one of these things of, it's a gulp factor. And it's something you pray about and you say, Lord, is that what you're asking us to do? And here's the thing, the God who has taken care of us and prospered us over all these years of ministry is going to be there the rest of our lives, and we know that. You know, one of the things we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take some resource out of our IRA to be able to do what he's asked us to do. It's like, it's pretty lame as is. But the fact is, the Lord said, I'm your provider. I've always been your provider, and I'm going to continue to be your provider. And you're in my hands now. You're in my hands when you started and you had nothing, and you're going to be in my hands at the very end of your life. And I've got you. And that's the step of faith. See, I know some folks sit and say, but I can't afford. See, that's the wrong question. The wrong question isn't what you can afford. It's what has God asked me to do? What has God said to do? You know, one of the things is when you start recognizing that God calls us, you start asking questions like, okay, yeah, I know God asked me to do this. Lord, how? And then you start thinking about, what could I give up? You know, what could I give up? And when you start thinking about that, it's like all of a sudden you begin to see things differently. You know, if you stop and think about it, one of the things you love to do is go to Starbucks and have a cup of coffee every day, you know? And if you gave up the cup of coffee from Starbucks, you know, because you're $5 for the coffee and then $1 for a tip, $6 a day, you realize over the 3-year campaign, that's $6,500. It's like, wow, that adds up. I'm spending that much on coffee? Yes, you are. And I don't blame you. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just giving you an example. That's something, if you said, God asked me to do something as little as the $6 a day. Well, I could do that. Well, over 3 years, that becomes $6,500. So, I mean, you understand how things multiply, even small bits. And think of it another way. Just even one dinner out, you know, for dinner for a couple, you know, $42 with tip. That's the same $6,500 over 3 years. Just one dinner out. You eat out one less time a week. Well, there's some grumbling going on there. Like I told you, that's the same sound system. Fine, whatever, it's $75 to knock yourself out. I don't care. My point is, you can forgo one meal a week out. And you know, I'm just saying there are ways to do more than we imagine possible. The question is, if we said, okay, I look around my house, what could I sell? What do I have that I could sell? You know, now it gets uncomfortable, right? You know, maybe you have a car that you're not using, but you had it but I like having that extra car. Maybe you got a boat that you go, I intended to use it. It was going to be so great, but we just never use it. A motorcycle. When I said the boat part, Willie was here the other night, and he got very, he started barking at me a little bit. I told Galen, you notice I didn't mention guitars. Whatever you need to do, that's the point. Someone came up after last Monday night's meeting and gave me a brilliant suggestion. The way they did a pledge one time was they had a bill that they'd been paying that was about to be over. And they just kept paying that bill towards the campaign. They'd already notched it out of their budget, so they just kept doing it until they made their pledge. All kinds of ways that you can give way more than you thought possible. But again, the question is not what can I afford? The question is, what is God asking me to do? I'm serious. This is what faith-building generosity is all about. How does this work? Some people say, well, I'm not sure how this works. I've got a slide. I just want to show you an example. Let's say someone did our cup of coffee a day. They were just at that level where they really couldn't do much more, but they did the cup of coffee a day. Look, so on October 29th is our pledge Sunday. They made a pledge of $6,500. Then, okay, on First Fruits Sunday, maybe they said we're going to give, because we're going to ask everyone to give as much of their pledge as they can up front First Fruits, because we're not borrowing any money. We're not doing a loan to do this campaign, right? We're paying as we go. We're paying off some loans, right? So as money comes in is when we're going to be able to do projects. So if every one of us did the best we could to do a first fruit offering, and that'll be the next week, November 5th, first fruits, if you said, say you just selected, and you can be whatever you want, whatever you can do, but let's say you said, okay, I can do 1,500 first fruits on November 5th. Then you have a balance of $5,000 paid over 36 months, $139 per month. That's what the coffee cup illustration would look like. Now, a bigger amount does the same thing, right? Let's say it's $65,000 that the Lord put in your heart. Some of you are like, oh, Jesus. Hey, but some of you know the Lord's asking you to do that kind of thing. Same thing, you do 15,000 maybe as first fruits would be your deal. And then over 3 years, 50,000 paid over 36 months, $13.90 a month. Everybody's at a different place. This is not about equal gifts or equal giving. It is about equal sacrifice. So that's what I'm saying. When God says, I want you to do this, I think we can all do something significant, something more than what we think right up front. The question is not what can I afford? The question is, what has God asked me to do? That's the question. And then we step out in faith. And we're going to have a pledge event last Sunday of October, okay? We're going to have a pledge event, and we're going to have the opportunity to come and say, this is what God's put on our heart. And this is what we're pledging to do over the 3-year campaign. We're going to ask everybody to do as much as we can in cash up front, what we call that first fruit offering. I'm at an age now where I can take some out of my IRA. I'm taking some out of the IRA for that first fruits and to help match what we're going to be able to do. And you're like, Sean, we're going to be stuck with you forever. You got to retire. Don't touch that money. You like that, Robert? Here's the thing. God's my provider. He always has been. He's going to take care of me. He's going to take care of me. And he always has. And we started this ministry and we had nothing. And God allowed us to do so much more than we thought. I never even thought I'd have an IRA. But he's taking care of us. And he's going to take care of us moving forward. The same God who's been faithful all along the way is going to be faithful in years to come. That's what the project is. That's what the task is. That's what the challenge is for all of us. And I'm asking you to pray and say, okay, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? What is it you want me to do? And if we'll do that, I believe God's going to do something miraculous and amazing. And we are going to have one heck of a celebration on the first Sunday in November as we bring those first fruits offerings and as we see what God did through River City Community Church. And understand, with the vision of what God has for this campus, that's the kids' lunch. That's the start. Jesus is going to take what we give and multiply it even more, and multiply it more ministry, more resources, more people investing who have a similar heart. That's how God's asked us to carry this ministry out. That's how he's put on our heart to make this a gift to the community. And I'm asking every one of us to say yes and participate.